Hi and welcome to the Take Back Control webinar. My name's Sam Bishop, I'm a performance psychologist and executive coach, and I've created this webinar to include 3 techniques that I currently use with my clients. Now that might be C-suite executives, senior business leaders, or even professional athletes. These techniques apply in all of those different settings, but they're all focused on my clients regaining or taking back some elements of control regarding their thinking, their emotions, and their actions and behaviors. So in the next few minutes that we're going to share together, the techniques are deliberately targeted to get you to think about taking back control of your thinking, take back control of your feelings and your emotions and your emotional reactions, and also to take back control of your actions and your behaviors. I'm really looking forward to sharing the next few minutes with you. I'm going to deliberately break it into those 3 parts and sections, and I really hope that you find it beneficial and that my background experience of psychology and psychotherapy can really help you and aid you reach those peak performance levels. Okay, so technique 1 is going to be all about your thinking. So now we're going to think about how you take back control of your cognitive processes, in particular those thoughts that can happen at really rapid speed and in really chaotic nature. Many of my clients arrive at a coaching session and will say things like, Sam, my head feels full, or my mind is really confused and I'm really unsure about which direction to take. My thoughts are almost working against each other and I'm not getting any clarity at all. Now, the first thing that I have to do with those clients is get them to really narrow down their current reality and allow us to focus in one particular area. And so that's the first step of the technique that I'm going to ask you now to do and you to think about, is to think about a particular situation or decision that you've got to make and place that in the middle. Okay? So don't allow it to be 20 different thoughts or decisions that you might be having at this moment in time. Allow yourself to narrow just into one area and make that one decision or one situation that you would really like to gain clarity on. Okay? Once you've been able to do that, what I then would encourage my clients to do, and what I'm going to encourage you to do today, is to then start to think about the thoughts that then spring out and away from that one situational decision that you've got to make. Now, it won't be unusual for a client to say to me, Sam, regarding that decision and situation, I've got one really, really strong thought about what it is that I should do or what it is that I think is the best thing to do. And so what I would then do is identify that with an arrow. That one thought feels like the predominant thought that my client might be having about how they should address that situation or the decision that they've got to make. The challenge comes, however, when we recognize and we do not deny the fact that then there are other or multiple other different thoughts that come in to counteract that initial or predominant thought. So what I then get my clients to do, and I'm going to ask you to do the same right now, is to then think about opposing or opposite thoughts that also go into your thinking or go into your mindset when you think about that decision or that situation. So let me make it real. It might not be unusual for a client of mine to be a senior leader or C-suite executive, and they'll say things like, Sam, I need to make a decision about a current situation regarding my senior leadership team. My predominant thought is that I should take them in this direction, that this thought is that it leads to a certain action or pathway. However, when I think about taking that thought or taking that action or pathway, these other situations or these other considerations come into my mindset and they create some confusion for me. And that is then what we need to identify in the second step of this situation or this technique, is that there may actually be multiple other thoughts that are active in your mind when you start to think about this situation or decision. Now that's valuable because if you were only having one thought, if you were just having this one thought over here, life would be really simple and straightforward. You'd be faced with a situation or you'd be faced with that decision, you'd have one thought and you'd act on it. Your thinking would just be aligned. You'd be straight across and taking that action moving forward. The reality is, as we know, is that your mind becomes chaotic and your thoughts all start to push and pull you into different directions. That's so valuable to recognize because what we're starting to recognize is that you're then in inner conflict. Your thoughts are in conflict with each other. It isn't just one thought, it's now multiple thoughts about what you think you should do regarding that situation and decision. So the technique that I then apply is to take it one step further. And rather than just allow this to be almost like a car going around a roundabout and just circling around, thinking about, oh, I could take that exit, or I could take that exit, or I could take that exit. But instead of actually exploring them, you just stay fixed on the roundabout and going round and round and round and round in your thinking, ultimately going into that inner thought conflict. I try to break that with my clients. I'm going to try and break that with you today. And I'm going to get you to actually start to think what these decisions or these outcomes would actually be like. So I then get my client to stop going round and round and round in their inner thoughts or thinking and allow them, for the purposes of the session, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, to actually walk along and make that thought reality. So I get them to think things like, if you were to take that thought and take it into reality, what would that look like? What would it physically look like? What would it mean? What would be the potential outcomes? What could be the potential positives? What might be the challenges? What might need to happen for that thought to become reality? What are the steps forward? And allow the client to physically immerse themselves into that reality. I then deliberately will stop them from taking that thought into reality. I'll bring them back to the roundabout or back to that inner conflict of their thinking and encourage them to take another direction. So one of those opposing thoughts that keeps coming into your mindset, what does it look like if you were to take that pathway? And so instead of them going round and round and round and being in that constant spin, what they'll then have by the end of our session together is maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 different understandings about the reality of what those thoughts are trying to say. So, in summary, this technique is all about allowing you to take back control of your thoughts. The first thing to do is narrow down onto one situation or one decision that you're currently thinking about and that you haven't yet got clarity over. Then allow yourself to explore the different thoughts, so the predominant thought, but the other thoughts that are then active in your mindset when you think about that decision or situation. Once you've done that, allow yourself to then explore the reality of those thoughts. Stop going around and round the roundabout, stop being in inner thought conflict, and push yourself out of that space to actually visualize and connect to the reality of if that thought became real. And allow yourself to do that with multiple thoughts or multiple different aspects of your thinking about how to address this decision or this situation. I can guarantee that if you allow yourself to do that and allow yourself to go to that depth, you will stop that energy that just bores you and frustrates you and makes you feel stuck and allows you to get much clearer clarity of thought and thinking about what you want to do with that decision or situation. So, technique 1, clarity of thinking. Allow yourself to take back control, get those thoughts in place to where you need them to be, and allow yourself to move forward. We're now going to move away from your thinking and we're going to move towards your emotions and your emotional reactions in the world. Now, it might not surprise you, but we just spoke about inner conflict in your thoughts, in your thinking. That's exactly the same and can happen in your emotions and in your emotional reactions. So what I'm now going to get you to do is to start to apply a technique that means you can understand your own emotions, you can start to consider other people's emotions, and then that allows you then to think about how you can use both of those levels of understanding to help you have positive interactions and communications with the people that surround you. It's not unusual for many of my clients to arrive at sessions and be feeling quite a mixture of different emotions, and that can be from an extreme of anger and frustration through to stress and exhaustion, all the way through into different things like happiness, sadness, numbness is also something that gets described. The first key thing that we need to do with all of my clients is get them to recognize how they themselves feel. So I get them to explore their inner world. So how they're feeling right now, what emotional energy they have within them. I'm going to ask you to do the same as you're listening to my talk today. What do you feel? Why might you be feeling that way? And what might that feeling be trying to tell you? Why is that emotional energy bubbling within you? And what's its message? What's its point of being there? Once we've then been able to gain clarity about how you feel and where your emotions are right now through exploring your self-awareness, we then need to start to think about the people or situations around you. So for the purposes of this webinar, let's imagine you're going to go into a dynamic or situation with another person, so one other individual, and you've got some uncertainty or some anxiety about how that conversational communication is going to go. Let's describe it as either an appraisal, feedback session, or maybe something that's going to happen in quite a challenging conversation. Once we've explored your emotions in that self-awareness step, I then get my clients to think about how the other person may be feeling. So this is empathy. This is you allowing yourself to leave your frame of reference and step into their frame of reference. We cannot step into their shoes. We cannot know exactly how they feel, but what we can allow ourselves to do is to be empathic and consider how they might be feeling or what might be going on for them. And again, some questions that I would pose to you in that space are you to get you to think about what might they be feeling, how long might they have been feeling that way, and what might that feeling be active for, or what might be the reason for why they're feeling that way. They're really good points and allow you then to consider another person's experience, another person's emotional energy. If you're able to do that, you've then got two really valuable pieces of information. Firstly, how you feel, then how they feel or how they might be feeling, and then that gives you the opportunity to think about how you're going to approach the communication that's then going to exist between the two of you, or the interaction that's about to occur between the two of you. If you're feeling a certain way and you recognize that the opposite person might be feeling a very different way, then you need to seriously consider how you approach that situation. If you approach it in a very dominant and direct way that doesn't consider the other person's emotions or reactions, then what you might find is that this interaction then becomes very negative. That would be the thing that I would hope you try to avoid. We're trying to think about how you take back control of your emotions and then how you use that for your benefit to take back control in these emotionally charged dynamics and conversations. It starts with step one. Take ownership and control by gaining that insight into how you actually feel. So many of my clients don't do that. They don't give themselves enough reflection space or enough time to consider how they truly feel. Don't fall into that trap. Ask yourself how you feel. Then recognize that there are other people in the world around you that you will be interacting with and exchanging communication with other people. Before you step into the interaction or the communication, allow yourself to step into empathy. Consider how they might be feeling. Adopt a reflection of what might be their frame of reference. Once you've gathered those two bits of information, try to take as much control as you can to then ensure that this interaction or communication that you share together actually becomes a very positive one. The reality is, guys, nobody leaves an interaction with another person or being in a neutral space. People either have a positive impact on each other or a negative impact on each other. It's really valuable that you allow yourself to be aware of that and that you allow yourself to take back control emotionally so that you can lead yourself to the most positive and successful outcomes that there are. Just before we move on to the next technique within the webinar, I want to make you aware that there's the opportunity for you and I to share a free 30-minute consultation together to look deeper into where you currently are and where you actually want to be. All you need to do to claim that free 30-minute session with me is to fill out and submit the form below. Please take advantage of this offer. Please make connection with me, and I look forward to sharing that time together soon. We're now moving on to the final technique, and the final technique relates to how you can take back control of your actions and your behaviors. Many of my clients will come to coaching sessions being really confused and really unsure about how they should act or how they should behave. And what will often be accompanied with that uncertainty is a feeling of fear about getting it wrong, acting the wrong way, or doing the wrong thing. This technique that I'm going to share with you today again puts you, the person, and your situation right at the center. I want you to get yourself into that mindset. What is the current situation or the challenge that I'm facing that I'm unsure about how to act or behave within? I then want you to take the second step, which is think about all of the different options that you have or different ways that you could act or behave towards that person or that situation or that dynamic that you've got to face. It'll be familiar, guys, because it's the same as in the thinking sort of locks or the thinking cycles. You might find yourself becoming regularly spinning around this roundabout of uncertainty of which way should I act or which way should I behave. Now, unlike what I got you to do with the thinking technique, With the actions and behavior techniques, sometimes the best thing to do is to actually make one your reality and take the step forward. Now, I'm not saying that you should be reckless and take huge risks, but sometimes there can be so many different ways that you could act or you could behave. And there are so many different feelings and thoughts that come with all of those different actions and behaviors that you can become stuck and not make any action or make any behavioral decisions at all. And this would happen for clients that I work with that get stuck in routines and structures and continue to live their lives in ways that they know they don't want to, but they fear or have different positives and negatives for each of these actions or steps. For those clients that I work with and for this technique, please break that cycle. Don't let yourself become stuck in that cycle. Take a step forward in one of those directions. Trial it. It's an experimentation technique. It's not about thinking it's correct before doing it or feeling it's correct before doing it. This is actually about taking a step into action and then reviewing and reflecting once you've done it. I guarantee, guys, that if you allow yourselves to stop thinking about what you do or stop worrying about what you do or fearing what you do and actually allow yourselves to do it, then you'll find yourselves learning, growing and developing in all of the actions and the behaviors that you take. So this technique is to stop thinking, stop feeling and just start doing. Go and do, go and be in that world. Allow yourself to engage. Once you're there, reflect. Was this a positive choice or a negative choice? If it doesn't work, you can always come back and try one of the other options. But don't allow yourself to just get stuck in that cycle of thinking and feeling about actions. Take an action and move forward. And I guarantee that you'll feel success and you'll move yourself to those performance levels that you desire. Thank you for joining me and engaging in the Taking Back Control webinar. I want you to leave this webinar knowing that you can take back control of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Apply those techniques, apply those strategies, and I guarantee you'll start to feel that momentum and that movement forward to those higher performance levels and the place that you want to be. If you're interested and you want to take our conversation further than where we are right now, please claim your free 30-minute consultation with me by submitting the form below. Simply click on the link below, complete the form, and then you and I can pick this conversation up, look at things a little bit deeper, making sure that we can take you from where you are now to where you actually want to be. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.